Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a sequence of events that feels, honestly, like a plot twist straight out of a tech thriller. But it's entirely real, and it has absolutely massive implications for anyone building, deploying, or just using AI right now. We are breaking down the sudden Friday afternoon shutdown of Anthropic's top-tier AI models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5, ordered directly by the US government. We're going to look closely at the rapid timeline, the intense technical clash over AI safety, and exactly what this singular event means for the extreme fragility of the global AI supply chain.
Picture this. The date is Friday, June 12th, 2026. The tech world is just wrapping up the week, logging off, when boom, an unprecedented shockwave hits. At exactly 5:21 p.m. Eastern Time, the AI research company Anthropic receives a formal, binding letter from the US government. Within hours, some of the most advanced artificial intelligence models on the entire planet are completely taken offline for hundreds of millions of users. And we're not talking about experimental toys here. These were the actual backbone of countless critical enterprise applications, suddenly gone, literally in the blink of an eye.
Section 1. The sudden shutdown, Fable 5 and Mythos 5 offline. Let's get right into it. The sheer speed of this incident was just staggering. Just days prior, Anthropic had launched Fable 5 to massive public anticipation, right? They were heavily touting its state-of-the-art benchmarks and reasoning capabilities. Yet, completely behind the scenes, the government was reviewing a private demonstration of a potential vulnerability. That rapid review culminated in that 5:21 p.m. directive on a Friday afternoon, leading immediately to a global suspension of the models. So we went from a major celebrated product launch to a total global blackout in a matter of days. Talk about whiplash. So the directive specifically targeted two heavily utilized models. First up, Fable 5, which, as you know, is Anthropic's most capable model for highly demanding reasoning and complex long-horizon work. Second, Mythos 5. Now, this is a specialized model with advanced cybersecurity capabilities, and it was only available in a limited rollout called Project Glasswing. When the order came down, Anthropic abruptly disabled these specific models for all customer server side. And that is a crucial point. The block happened entirely on Anthropic's infrastructure. There was absolutely no client-side workaround available, no API key rotation or emergency software patch could save developers. The connection was simply severed right at the source. Moving on to Section 2, behind the National Security Directive. You see, the government didn't just ask nicely or request a voluntary pause here. They formally issued an export control directive citing broad national security authorities. The specific, non-negotiable instruction was to immediately suspend all access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 by any foreign national, regardless of whether they were located inside or outside the United States. Now, because it's incredibly difficult, if not technologically impossible, to instantly and flawlessly verify the exact nationality of every single user and API call globally in real time, Anthropic had to make a drastic choice. To ensure strict legal compliance, they literally had to pull the plug for absolutely everyone, across the entire board. So you're probably wondering, what exactly caused such a severe and incredibly sudden government intervention? What in the world did federal authorities find that warranted shutting down a heavily relied upon commercial product used by millions of people and thousands of businesses in an instant? Well, that brings us to Section 3, the jailbreak safety debate. The government's core concern really centered around a newly discovered method to jailbreak Fable 5. Now, if you're somehow unfamiliar with the term, jailbreaking is essentially a technique used to bypass a model's built-in programmed safeguards. It involves tricking the AI into providing restricted information, generating prohibited code, or performing unauthorized actions that its creators explicitly trained it to refuse. In this specific case, the government was shown a bypass directly related to Fable 5's coding abilities. But to really understand Anthropic's defense, we have to clearly distinguish between two very different types of jailbreaks. A universal jailbreak is basically like a master key. It broadly bypasses all safeguards simultaneously and unlocks a wide, unpredictable range of dangerous capabilities across the entire model. On the other hand, a non-universal jailbreak is more like a single picked lock. It only works in specific, highly narrow circumstances to elicit a very restricted, targeted set of information or behaviors. And Anthropic actually responded publicly, stating, "We disagree that the finding of a narrow potential jailbreak should be cause for calling a commercial model deployed to hundreds of millions of people." Anthropic firmly maintains that the exploit the government saw was a non-universal jailbreak, that narrow picked lock we just talked about.
They argue it was a minor, previously known vulnerability. Basically, it consisted of asking the model to read a specific provided codebase and fix existing software flaws within it. In fact, Anthropic pointed out that this exact level of capability is widely reproducible on other existing models on the market right now, including OpenAI's GPT 5.5, without even needing a bypass in the first place.
But wait, as objective observers here, we have to impartially consider the government's stance as well. While Anthropic, and honestly many developers, see this as a minor, widely accepted industry standard flaw, the government's primary mandate is to vigorously protect national security. When advanced cyber capabilities and potential software exploits are involved, their tolerance for risk shifts dramatically. They seemingly demand zero-day perfect safety, regardless of what the rest of the commercial tech industry currently considers normal or acceptable risk.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this fundamental, gaping mismatch between two entirely different worlds. On one side, you have regulatory expectations demanding absolute, perfect safety guarantees and instantaneous mitigation of any threat. On the other side, you have technical reality. Anthropic openly admits that 100% perfect jailbreak resistance is just not currently possible for any AI provider. Instead, the entire industry relies on probabilistic alignment, meaning the model is trained to probably do the safe thing most of the time, coupled with the defense in-depth strategy. This means making jailbreaks very narrow, incredibly complex, or very expensive to execute, all while actively monitoring systems to detect and shut them down after the fact.
All right, moving into Section 4, AI supply chain fragility. The operational reality we must now face head-on is this. In the modern era, you do not own your foundational AI infrastructure. You merely rent access to it. Think about it. In the past, you owned the physical hardware and the proprietary code running on your local servers. Today, foundational AI infrastructure is entirely controlled externally by massive tech providers. You don't own the underlying model, you just rent the API endpoint. And as we clearly saw on that Friday afternoon, that rented access can be permanently or temporarily revoked instantly by a government directive or an internal policy change, and you have absolutely no technical mechanism to override it. None. So when Fable 5 and Mythos 5 were disabled server-side without any advance notice, the fallout was absolutely instantaneous. Subscriptions and API quotas were immediately suspended. Every automated agent, customer support bot, and complex data pipeline relying on those specific model endpoints failed simultaneously. Just imagine a massive hospital network's patient triage bot or an international bank's real-time fraud detection agent just going entirely dark in a fraction of a second. Engineering teams worldwide suddenly found themselves dealing with massive, cascading service degradation. They were scrambling to conduct emergency code audits just to figure out exactly how deeply their critical systems were tied to this single point of failure. Which brings us to Section 5, how developers must adapt. Okay, here's how you build a truly resilient system right now. Because this event proves beyond a doubt that you can no longer assume your primary AI provider will always be online. First, you must comprehensively audit your production dependencies. Find absolutely every script, microservice, and agent calling those disabled endpoints. Second, you cannot hard code a single provider anymore. You need robust, multi-model routing. Third, actively implement aggressive caching and graceful fallbacks, so your core application doesn't just crash when a downstream API goes dark. And finally, thoroughly document everything you do, because future regulatory audits will increasingly demand explicit contingency plans for sudden AI disruptions. Take a look at this. If you have a hard-coded single provider deeply embedded in your source code, your system fragility risk is currently at maximum. You are totally exposed. But by intentionally introducing abstraction layers, using middleman tools like Light LLM or custom routing middleware that can automatically swap out language models on the fly, and fully caching your logic, you dramatically lower your overall risk profile. You successfully eliminate the single point of failure. This allows your entire system to seamlessly route its requests to a completely different model or fallback provider if your primary vendor is suddenly shut down by an unexpected federal order or an unforeseen outage. It's an absolute game changer. This Friday afternoon's shutdown was a massive, industry-wide wake-up call for sure. It forcefully highlighted the severe friction between the fast-moving, probabilistic reality of AI development and the absolute zero-tolerance demands of national security. As you digest the sweeping implications of this event and take a hard look at your own software architecture, I'll leave you to ponder this vital question about the future of enterprise technology. In an era of rented AI infrastructure, who really controls your tech stack? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to rigorously review your system dependencies today. Catch you next time.